Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has held an emergency meeting regarding the ongoing atrocities and aggression of Israeli regime against the innocent people in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, and also its infringement on Iran's sovereignty. The meeting strongly condemned Israel's aggression, war crimes, and also genocide in Gaza and the West Bank, and demanded an immediate halt to this particular aggression. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has also condemned the assassination of Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh, with the chair of the OIC meeting, Gambian Foreign Minister Mahmoudou Tangara, saying, let me quote him, "This heinous act serves only to escalate the existing tensions, potentially leading to a wider conflict that could involve the entire region," unquote. Also, at the same time, we have seen certain statements coming from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a statement coming from Israeli Army Chief, as well as the spokesperson of the Israeli government will also be talking about those particular statements also as to what do they depict. At the same time, we have also seen U.S. National Security Advisor John Kirby saying, let me quote him, that the United States is engaged in intense diplomacy to secure a ceasefire deal for Gaza, and it believes it is as close as we think we have been to finalizing the agreement, unquote. Also, at the same time, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar, while addressing that emergency meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, has made a statement saying what Israel is doing with unprecedented impunity is more than just adventurism, it is pure madness. Also, at the same time, Pakistan's Army Chief General Sayyid Asim Munir has said the heart cries tears of blood after seeing the atrocities on Palestine and Gaza, unquote. We'll be talking about the situation as it is unfolding. As far as the Gaza Strip is concerned, the brutality, the atrocities and the aggression by the Israeli regime and the international efforts, if any, in order to reach a ceasefire deal. To discuss all these aspects, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by His Excellency Mr. Nadir AlTurk, he is Deputy Head of the Mission Palestinian Embassy in Pakistan. Mr. AlTurk, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I would really appreciate that you took time out exclusively for PTV World today. And on Skype, at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Baluch. He's former ambassador. Mr. Baluch, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Mr. Nadir AlTurk. When we talk about this particular extraordinary meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, it has demanded an immediate end to the Israeli aggression. Looking at the timing of this particular meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, especially in the wake of that assassination of Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, in which Israel is involved, how do you look at the significance of this meeting and the kind of statement that has been released by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation?
Actually, to be clear, Israelis didn't kill only Ismail Haniyeh. They tried to kill any opportunity for ceasefire in Gaza. Ismail Haniyeh, he is one of, flexible leader, not radical one, and he was negotiate throughout the groups who are involved for getting the Americans' ideas of ceasefire in Gaza. So when Israelis killed Ismail Haniyeh, actually they tried to kill ceasefire in Gaza to continue their crimes against humanity, murder more and more innocent Palestinian people, kill more children, more women there, and to don't leave any opportunity for peace or stability, or come back to getting opportunity for the Gaza people to settle in and come back to their homes and end this misery there. Actually, because all of that happened because Netanyahu is afraid from the second day after the war in Gaza, because he is facing 4 cases in the Israeli court for corruption, and he is sure after the end of this war he's going to be responsible not only of these 4 cases, he's going to be responsible of the failing security, intelligence army, Israel's army failed on 7th of October, and he will face the 4 cases of corruption, and he will end his tenure as a prime minister, and the only place going to accept him is the Israelis' jails. So, according to that, he is afraid of the second day of end of the war, and he like to continue this war and extend it and make it continuous in different areas. That's why he starts speaking of, he attacked Yemen, and he right now plan to start a war against Lebanon, and who knows, maybe he go and he later before he attack the embassy of Iran to make them involved directly in the war, and right now he killed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. So he is right to extend this war not only by time but only to make it bigger and go for it become regional in all the area, to be sure that he will stay forever in his position, to not go to the jail.
I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. Very important point that you have just made, that you just want to prolong this particular conflict in order to be at that particular position for a longer time. But for how long can he sustain with this approach to continue in that particular position? At some particular point in time in future, it has to end.
This is a very clever question, very nice question. And the answer is very simple. As long as the Americans blindly support Israelis, he will continue this war forever. Okay. Because the Americans give them, in one way, said that we are like to have ceasefire, on the other hand, they support Israelis with bombs and with bombs. Our people in Gaza are killed by Americans' bombs, by Americans' aircrafts, by Americans' tanks. Okay, it is made in Israel, but the Israelis made it, but actually all the spare parts of that tanks are Americans. So it is actually Americans' tanks, but under the name of Israelis. So we are killed by Americans' bombings. So as long as the Americans blindly support the Israelis, this war will continue. Other hand, we need the importance of the meeting of OIC. We hope is going to getting lobbying against the Israelis to end their crimes, to follow and obey the international law, to make the justice be served by activate all the international resolution in favor of Palestine to end this conflict forever. The only solution is acceptable after this bloody misery life of the Palestinians since 1948 until now is only establishing Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital and facilitates the right of return for the Palestinian people according to 194 resolution. This is the only thing. This is very simple. We only ask for justice to be served, ask to obey the international law, obey the international humanitarian law, obey the human rights principles, and activate the international resolution to be fact on the ground. This is very simple.
Right, Excellency, you made very important points over here, especially the prolonging that particular mindset and the approach of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when it comes to him sustaining with that particular position. And it will continue, this conflict will be prolonged as far as there is a support by the United States of America. You already said that, but there is a statement that has been made by the US National Security Advisor John Kirby as to the chances of ceasefire deal that is very closer between Israel and Hamas. I'll come back to you to take your deeper understanding as to that particular statement. Also, let me proceed with the discussion towards Mr. G.R. Baluch, his former ambassador. Mr. Baluch, first of all, as per your understanding, the timing of this particular extraordinary meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the kind of demands which have been made in this, the significance of it as per your understanding. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Jawad, basically this OIC extraordinary meeting has been called in response to a joint request by Palestinian state and Iran. Of course, in the backdrop of the violation of the territorial integrity of Iran, where a distinguished guest who was attending the inauguration of the new president of the Islamic Republic of Iran was murdered. And this definitely is a violation of the basic principle of the sovereignty of states, which actually, in fact, binds the international order. And according to that, and it is enshrined in the UN Charter that no violate the territorial integrity of any country by any means or any reasons. So I think this was important that the Muslim countries have gathered. They have responded to the request of Iran. They have and Palestine, and I think it's a very serious issue because Israel has been in this behavior and this violations since many years. It has violated territorial integrity of Iran several times by murdering its scientists, by attacking it. Of course, it violated Iraq's territorial integrity and destroyed its whatever peaceful nuclear installations were there. Of course, Syria is being bombed every day almost there. Lebanon is just across the border for them, so they keep sending their planes, they keep firing their guns. So essentially, nobody in the Middle East is safe from this maverick behavior of this very strange state of Israel, which apparently has not only lost its kind of moral and ethical, in fact, basis and foundation on which the present state system exists. Because if we give away the normal norms through which the state behave, then we'll be in a world of chaos and anarchy. So I think Israel's crimes are not only against humanity by way of killing innocent Palestinians, by killing innocent people in rest of the Middle East, but I think it's against the very international order. It's against the very charter of the UN, and of course now as being established by the International Criminal Court. Netanyahu, who is a war criminal, it's been proven, and in fact the recent report, which is a abhorrent report of torturing the prisoners. In fact, they have gone to the inhumane level of, there are accusations of rape and intimidation, humiliation. I think these are all inexcusable crimes by any state, and the state is doing it. The unfortunate point is that the state of Israel is in the hands of cabal, or the group of people who are war maniacs. They just know nothing except for killing people, just because they happen to have the weapons which are unfortunately supplied by so-called civilized Western world. So that needs to be looked into, and I hope that OIC not only condemns the acts of Israel, but also raises its voice on the sources of weaponry, on the sources of ammunition, which is being sent to be thrown on helpless Palestinians. So just to emphasize the point, in the past, like about an hour, about here, so they have like thrown about 70,000 tons, metric tons of explosive on small strip of 20 miles to 6 miles, 20 miles long and 6 miles wide. So imagine, it means not a single square foot of Gaza would be safe from any other bomb that would have not received the bombs.
I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. Very important points that you've just made. Also, when it comes to the violation of international law, with this particular assassination on the part of Israel of Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, and the breach of the Iran's territorial integrity and also sovereignty. Now, this particular statement by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation also urges the United Nations Security Council within its primary responsibility for maintaining international peace and security to take or make an effective intervention. I'll come back to you to take your understanding that is there any sort of a mechanism in place through which the United Nations Security Council could take any effective intervention at this point in time on this particular violation of international law and the UN Charter? Let me proceed towards another participant on the phone line. We are honored to have been joined by Mr. Javed Jadoon. He is senior journalist. Mr. Jadoon, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Now, this particular OIC extraordinary meeting regarding as to the aggression of Israel in occupied Gaza and also in the occupied West Bank. Now, it also calls on the United Nations Security Council to make intervention as to the breach of Israel as far as Iran's sovereignty is concerned. What do you expect from the United Nations Security Council at this particular point in time when there is a fear of escalation of this conflict into the wider region?
Yeah, very much. I don't believe you can trust as far as the response to the United Nations Security Council is concerned, given as international body what has done so far, the genocide of the Palestinian people down unhindered.
Jadoon, we can't hear you properly. I guess there is a little bit of distortion. We'll try to reconnect with you and we'll resume this particular discussion with you from this particular point. Let me take this point once again back to Mr. Baluch. Mr. Baluch, now when we talk about that expectation from the United Nations Security Council to take an effective measure or take that effective intervention as to the breach of Israel regarding the international law and the UN Charter by breaching the Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity, what are your suggestions? Is there any mechanism in place that the United Nations Security Council at this point in time can pursue or follow?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any state whose territorial integrity has been violated by another member state, Israel, unfortunately, is the member of the United Nations membership. So I think after the OIC recommendations are made, probably Iran or a group of Muslim countries would present a resolution in the UN Security Council, thereby where the sanctions can be issued, sanctions can be imposed on Israel, or at least condemnation has to come against this violation of territorial integrity of Iran. So I think there is a mechanism. The only problem is that even in Security Council, since Israel has the backing of the US and some other Western powers, the permanent members. So we don't know whether that resolution will pass through. But at least the collective voice of the Muslim Ummah, 52 country membership, is a colossal power that potentially OIC has it. So I think there is a need, and I'm pretty hopeful that the OIC in its present conference in Jeddah would definitely pass a very strong worded resolution and demand from the UN Security Council and call upon them to pass such a resolution, pass sanctions against Israel, and of course many other concrete actions that can be taken by the member states that should be taken so that this criminal war, this genocidal war comes to an end. After all, when is going to be enough is enough? No, none. It seems there is no limit. There is no limit that Israel observes or those who support Israel want to see. So I think the OIC must come up with very categorical statement asking the United Nations to set conditions where the negotiations can take place, where the genocidal war can come to end, and obviously the agony of those people who are held hostage are held in the Israeli jails could be released. After all, the human conscience has to rise up. It has to be woken up. I hope. I mean, that's very strange to see, obviously.
Now, when we talk about the United Nations Security Council resolution in this particular regard, and in case there happens to be a resolution with unanimity on the part of the members of the United Nations Security Council, we've already seen that this particular statement by the OIC also talks about those ICJ legal advisory opinion regarding the illegality of the settlement in the Palestinian territory, and also ordering at that particular moment the state of Israel in order to take measures to stop those measures which can constitute into genocide. But the question arises is that who is, even if such resolution is passed by the United Nations Security Council, we have already seen ICJ's legal advisory opinion, who is going to physically stop Israeli regime from carrying out its atrocities there?
Yeah, I think that question has been answered by several analysts that it will just take a phone call by the US president. Stop it, Mr. Netanyahu. And I think the present president who is going to go leave his post, I would say that I hope that he leaves a legacy behind him of stopping this genocidal war. He does pick up the moral courage to call Netanyahu that stop this genocide. So I think there is a need for OIC countries to send these strong messages collectively and individually, and maybe symbolically, those countries who have established diplomatic relations with Israel should reconsider whether to really recall their ambassadors or send the Israeli ambassadors back to Tel Aviv. There are several actually tools, diplomatic tools, which can be used to pressurize Israel, and it must come into effect now. It's already very, very late.
That it is just a matter of one single phone call when it comes to US President just making a phone call telling Benjamin Netanyahu to stop it. Do you think it's going to be sufficient? I'll come back to you to take your deeper understanding, because we have seen, as per the media reports, that the US President Joe Biden wasn't that much happy with the kind of approach Benjamin Netanyahu was actually pursuing as far as the brutality of its regime in Gaza is concerned. Excellency, Mr. Nadir AlTurk, what's your understanding? What are the expectations when it comes to the Palestinian people from the United Nations Security Council, who is mandated to ensure international peace and security as per the UN Charter?
First of all, we have from United Nations more than 800 resolutions in favor of Palestine. One of it was from Security Council itself in 2016, number 2334, about illegal settlements, Israeli settlements on the Palestinian territories. With that, the Israelis didn't obey any of it. Settlements still continue, and looting our land still continuous by the Israelis day by day. Killing Palestinians by settlers continue day by day. Israel, as a state, was establishing by International Resolution 181, which giving them for Israelis for free 56% of the land of Palestine in 1947. With that, the Israelis occupied 78% of the land of Palestine, and until now, the United Nations don't have the power to change these realities on the ground and the illegal activities by Israelis against Palestinian people. So, what we are waiting actually from the United Nations was mentioned by your honorable ambassador to United Nations. He mentioned two things, okay, very important. That first of all, Israel need membership in the United Nations need to be freeze, because you know Israel as a state during the membership of United Nations according to 273 resolution under two conditions: obey and facilitate two resolution 181, which is giving birth certificate for them as a state, and second 194, which speak about right to return of the Palestinian people to their own homes, which become refugees in 1948. But Israel didn't obey none of that. According to that, he asked, His Excellency asked for freezing the membership of Israel there. Second, he kindly asked for punish the countries who are delivering weapons for the Israelis, because these weapons used to kill civilians, Palestinian civilians, innocent children and women. According to that, these countries need to stop there and freeze the supply of weapons for the Israelis. We speak about many of countries. First of all is the Americans, of course. Your honorable guest mentioned that only one call from Mr. Biden to Netanyahu can stop the war. Actually, Mr. Biden, sorry to say that, he have double faces. First speak about ceasefire, but when you are looking for the American government activities on the ground, they use the veto 3 times to make failure for getting a decision from United Nations to ceasefire in Gaza. We see in the one hand, Mr. Biden speak that he is not satisfied with the Israelis' action in Gaza, and he don't have the courage to mention that a genocide. He don't have the courage to say this is crimes against humanity. This is, and he didn't. He will come, and you see when the Congress welcome Netanyahu as a hero. Okay, as I mentioned before with my brother, other show in your honorable channel, that they welcome him like they are welcome George Washington, that he came from his grave, and they was welcome him that and thanks him for his great support and good work for the nation of American nations. So according to that, the Americans use double standards, double face, and this need to be end. So the phone will not end the things, because as long as he give double face, give double speech, one for public, okay, and one for elections, one for international organization, one for the media, and the reality, he's give full support for the Israelis in their crimes, this will never end. We need our Muslim Ummah to be united,
Right.
make strong lobbying to end this misery, these crimes. We need all humanity to stand once against these crimes, to send the criminal to the jail. We speak about Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben Gvir, and all the Israelis army leaders. And this, we need to end supply weapons for the Israelis. We need to see more active and strong process on the ground and steps on the ground, similar to what they do for the Russians when they attack Ukraine.
Your point as well.
Ukrainians are human, Palestinians are human. All of us, and brothers and sisters in humanity, all of us have the right to enjoy equal rights as a humans. The human rights principle, not only for Ukrainian, not only for United States of American nations, not only for British, not only for French. It is for all the humanities. Whatever is our religion, Jew, Muslim, Christians, Hindu, Buddhian, all of us are son and daughter of Adam and Eve. According to that, all of us, his life is precious, have the right to live. Israel create their crimes against humanity because 1,200 Israelis killed on 7th of October. More than 50% was killed by Israelis army itself, not by the Palestinian fighters. And right now they killed more than 40,000 Palestinians, injured more than 100,000 Palestinians, destroyed 80% of Gaza, and with that, still we are speaking about only ceasefire, not speak about peace process, ending in the occupation to Palestine, not speaking about establishing the state of Palestine, not speaking about right to return Palestinian refugees. We need to end these double standards once forever.
Right. Let me once again proceed to Mr. Baluch. Mr. Baluch, what's your understanding? You've clearly heard what Mr. Nadir AlTurk has to say when it comes to the double standards of the United States administration in place at the moment. As you already mentioned, that it would take only one call on the part of the US president to stop Benjamin Netanyahu from pursuing his atrocities further in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, there is a distortion in the way the governments work in the West, and especially in the US. When I said phone call, what I meant was a sincere effort, symbolically a phone call, where all the stakeholders of the state, which includes its Congress, Senate, and other establishments, they have to come up on their, come on and they have to get rid of this unconditional support of Israel. The sad thing was, I just was reading, and it is so abhorrent to see that the US and the UK ambassadors did not attend a commemoration event in Japan, which was to commemorate the nuclear devastation in which in two bombs that were thrown on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, just because Japanese government decided, and correctly decided, not to invite Israeli ambassadors. So the kind of blind support of the West is not understandable. What is it? Perhaps it is that the Israeli lobby, it is the Western interests, but it is working against their own system. I mean, they are losing credibility as credible, democratic, and countries who believe in a peaceful world, who believe in the civilizational values and norms those who believe in the Charter of the United Nations. So when if a country which is in the flagrant violation of the United Nations Charter, and if A country or B country continues to give it a blind support, then one feels that where is that sincerity? Where is that moral high ground? So I think hypocrisy is.
Where is that particular high ground, that moral ground when it comes to the Western world, in particular when it comes to the rights of all the human beings equally? They deserve to live in peace and with dignity. Mr. G.R. Baluch, former ambassador, thank you very much for joining in at Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Mr. AlTurk, when we talk about there are two statements, let's bring those two statements, let's try to compare as to. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken talks of restraint to both sides, Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian resistance group. Also, on the other side, we have once again seen that particular statement by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that we are prepared both defensively and offensively. We are striking our enemies and determined to defend ourselves. So on one side, the supporter of Israel who is ready to defend it no matter what come may. So on the other side, what we see is that particular provocative statement by Israeli Prime Minister yet again.
I will go back to the international law. I will go back for the speech of Russians and Chinese officials. There was clearly said after the 7th of October, 2023, that the Israelis don't have the right of defense. Only the Palestinians have that right, because they are the power of occupation. And power of occupation, it is always breaking the law, breaking the international law. According to that, they don't have self-defense right. But for the Palestinians, because they are under the occupation, they have the right to defend themselves. According to international law, the Palestinians, because they are under occupation, they have the right to struggle for their freedom, for their independence, for getting, establishing their own independent state. They have to use any tools available between their hands, okay, to get their freedom and their independence. But the Israelis are not. So when the Palestinian fighters use force for getting independent, getting freedom, this is legal by international law. When the Israelis using force against the Palestinians, this is illegal and against the international law. When Palestinians defend themselves, struggle for their identities, their culture, for their liberty, their freedom, this is right. Completely right. But any action by Israelis, it is illegal. It is illegal. This is international law. So Americans are invited, the other countries who are using double standard are invited to deal with Israelis and Palestinian conflict exact like I'm dealing with Ukrainian and Russian conflict. This is two cases, similar, not same, but still need to be followed by international law. We like, as example, the Israelis are looting the Palestinians' money, Palestinians' custom money, and the Americans do nothing. Americans and the European countries decide to freeze the Russians' money in their banks, okay? But on the other hand, we didn't see that they take such actions like similar against the Israelis who are looting the Palestinians'
so that
money
shows
and stealing the Palestinian national resources and taking and killing the Palestinians in cold blood and killing innocent people. We need to see similar action for the
rights of the Palestinians. Also, let me bring in another panelist in the show, Ms. Naela Chouhan. She is former ambassador, joining us on the phone line. Ms. Naela, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let me bring in this particular statement made by the chair of the OIC meeting, Gambian Foreign Minister, when there was a statement and this extraordinary meeting of OIC that was held. He said this heinous, referring to that assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, that this heinous act serves only to escalate the existing tensions, potentially leading to a wider conflict that could involve the entire region. Your understanding at this particular point in history, as we have also seen after that assassination, Iranians have also pledged to avenge that assassination. What is the likelihood of the escalation of this particular situation into the wider conflict?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to your program. I agree with this apprehension that the Israeli illegal actions everywhere, including the murder of Ismail Haniyeh, under the pretext that they are going to eliminate Hamas. You must understand, Hamas is not a person. Hamas is an ideology. The more they kill, the stronger it gets. So they are just creating a vicious cycle of killings and violation of international law. And if they think that they can get away with it and there'll be no reaction, they are mistaken. You may recall that when Iran retaliated last time also, they basically broke the Israeli myth of dome of defense, that they can penetrate through it. Turkey has also cautioned that if Israel does not behave itself, does not stop such violations of international law, blatant violations of international law, the Muslim countries will then have to join hands. In OIC meeting, they have condemned this heinous attack. They hope that there will be no escalation. But if Israel doesn't stop and the West continues to close its eyes on what Israel is doing, then we will also have to think on how to stop Israel from further massacres.
What it would take to stop Israel if that particular Western support continues to come in for Israel, and Israel continues with this particular approach by looking at this particular statement by Benjamin Netanyahu also, that we are prepared both defensively and offensively, and we are striking our enemies and determined to defend ourselves.
You see, it's funny that Israel is saying this because Henry Kissinger once said, who was also a Jew, that the search for security enhances insecurity. And that's precisely what Israel is doing. So if they think that their concept of defense is by eliminating everyone else, this is a mistake. And Netanyahu himself in his own constituency is losing popularity. His interest is to perpetuate the war so that he can still cling on to the seat. But he is equally unpopular in his own community. So his strategy of killing Palestinians in cold blood is backfiring, not only for Netanyahu, but the Jewish community internationally, because these were the people who the world had sympathy for after the Holocaust. And now they are the same people getting the reputation of genocide. So all the sympathy that they had earned in last half a century is now converting against them. So Jews also feel humiliated by this massacre that Netanyahu is continuing with. It's not.
Former Ambassador, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Now we are joined by another participant on Skype, Mr. Javed Khan Jadoon. He is senior journalist. Mr. Jadoon, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let's talk about this particular statement by U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, expressing the hope that the Gaza ceasefire is very close between Israel and the Palestinian resistance group, and he considers it very close as they think that we had ever been to reaching such type of agreement. Do you expect such type of ceasefire deal being reached upon very soon, especially in the wake of a recent assassination of Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh?
Thank you very much. I think we have been hearing this for quite a long time, that the ceasefire in Gaza is around the corner, but that was not the case because Israeli forces on genocidal actions in the Gaza Strip, and they have killed so far about 40,000 Palestinians, mostly innocent children and women. And let alone what John Kirby says, what is happening with the Arab neighbors who surround the Palestinian territories? They haven't taken any action. We are not talking about the military action, but the proactive diplomacy hasn't worked, and they are quite absolutely, there's a quite on as far as the Arab diplomacy is concerned. And as far you talking about any
Mr. Jadoon, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. What about this particular OIC meeting? Very strong statements and the demands, the kind of demands that have been made after this particular meeting in the wake of the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, also categorically speaking that it condemns the Israeli war crimes, the genocide and the kind of atrocities it is perpetrating against the innocent people in both in Gaza and also in the occupied West Bank. Also talks about that particular breach of Iran's sovereignty, the infringement of that, also demands the United Nations Security Council to take effective measures or to make intervention at this particular point in time. So when it comes to the responsibility of the United Nations Security Council, as per its mandate under the United Nations Charter, what is expected of the UNSC to do at this particular point in history?
You have read the entire statement rather than asking a question. My very brief answer to your long statement is that OIC is a dead horse. It doesn't make any difference what they say over there. Nobody is listening as far as Israel is concerned. Not even America is interested in forcing a ceasefire in Gaza because the elections in America are around the corner and they do not want to anger the very powerful Jewish lobby over there. Israel has defied every request or every concern from President Biden. They would continue to do so. Netanyahu is a merciless person, and he believes that he won't stop the bombardment of Gaza until his objectives are complete. That is the decimation of the entire Palestinian population who have been starved in Gaza, who have been, even the recent example of molesting a Palestinian prisoner has really shocked the entire world community. But what reaction you have seen from the Arab world? You are talking about the OIC. OIC is there for a long, long time. There's a conflict in Kashmir. There's a conflict in the Middle Eastern region. Iran is definitely looking for revenge from Israel because a very senior leader of Hamas was killed on their territory, who was their guest. What has happened to OIC? OIC, I don't believe we're looking too much into OIC actions. It is just a lip service. The Muslim leaders gather there, they issue a statement, go back to their own respective capitals and the business as usual as far as Gaza's genocide is concerned. Have they stopped bombing because of the...
What about the expected response on the part of the Iranian government when it comes to this particular assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran? Do you think that particular response would lead this particular conflict into a wider regional conflict?
That's a very important question, because there are two very important problems for Iran. Iran projected its military power in the region. Iran has proxies, or they call them the axis of resistance. And the axis of resistance include the Houthis in Yemen and the Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in the Palestinian territories. What is going to happen to the Iranian influence if they don't take any action as far as the killing of Hamas leader is concerned in Tehran? Because not a single entity which is called the axis of resistance is going to trust Iran any further. And Iran believes that their image has been tarnished in the region, and they very carefully crafted a very carefully crafted image in the Middle Eastern region that they are a powerful country, would be damaged beyond repair if the Iranians don't react or respond to the Israeli aggression on their territory. So I think it's a very difficult choice for the Iranians. If they go for the reaction and the reaction is hitting Israeli targets directly, then they are going for the conflagration of the conflict in the Middle Eastern region. And one more important factor is that the United States would be there to support, help militarily the Israeli government. And the American...
In that case, Mr. Jadoon, what are going to be the implications that you can foresee at this point?
I do see the kind of a reaction. It could be a very considered, very measured response from Iran. They will have to do that. Not doing is not an option for the Iranians. But I believe they would keep into consideration that the response doesn't go beyond certain boundaries and limitations have been set by the Americans. It could be a very symbolic response as they did in the past as well. And they could use their own proxies in the Middle East as well. So I believe response will be there. As far as the response is concerned, I strongly believe it is not an option for the Iranians not to go for that. But I strongly believe that that would be a very considered, very measured, and very limited response because it would be a symbolic response. Iranians won't be...
It's well taken. Unfortunately, we're short of time. I'll have to take the closing comments from Mr. Nadir AlTurk. Your closing comments as to...
3 points, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
First point, actually, Ismail Haniyeh is not the first one killed by Israelis. Okay, we have long history for the Israelis with extrajudicial murder by killing poison Yasser Arafat, the president of the state of Palestine, killing Abu Ali Mustafa by rocket against his office in Ramallah, killing Abu Yusuf al-Najjar, Kamal Adwan, and many, and Khalil al-Wazir in Tunisia. Okay, they killed many of Palestinian leaders. They are think that by killing Palestinian leaders, they are killing our strengths to continue our struggle for independence and freedom. And we, from here, I raise by on behalf of my people that the blood of our people, the blood of our leader, lighting our struggle, our way for independence and freedom. Second things, Netanyahu actually, as a new Nazi, is following the theories of Goebbels. He was following the propaganda and the media of the Nazi group. That he said Goebbels lie and keep lying until people believe you.
Very, very important points. Unfortunately, we are short of time.
And please, and he said, and keep lying until you believe yourself. This is what Netanyahu is doing right now.
Excellency,
so,
I have to end the show over here.
Thank you very much for your time. I
really appreciate you taking time out.
I guess OIC needed actually to translate the hard and strong position statement to become strong activities on the ground to make Israelis a solution in the world.
Thank you very much for your time, for being with us. And Mr. Javed Khan Jadoon, senior journalist, joining us on Skype. Thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.